It took me 17 years to get my citizenship. I went through a lot, and I can advocate for myself, as you all will attest. And yet it was still extremely difficult, and there was a lot of processing. And I still remember that day when I got there to take my oath of citizenship. And it was such an incredible honor, privilege, opportunity to be admitted after 17 years to be a United States citizen and to take that oath and to know I had gone through tests that most Americans would fail. If you gave that naturalization test to the majority of Americans, they would not pass it. I promise you that. But we studied, right? I studied those questions really hard because I really wanted to pass. And I wanted to be somebody who is worthy of the citizenship being conferred on me. And by the way, when you take that oath, there are very few countries in the world where you can have dual citizenship. There are some, but for most of us, certainly from India, it is not one of those countries. And so you have to renounce all allegiance to any other country when you take the oath. And we do that. We do that willingly because we know that when we come to the United States of America, it is an honor, it is a privilege, it is a process. It's a very emotional moment for many of us who are US citizens who have been naturalized, who have lived in this country for a long time, to see the distinctions that are being made between those of us who are naturalized and have been so incredibly patriotic, whether you like our opinions or not, and a part of this country, to see the ways in which, certain elements of the Constitution don't seem to apply. Certain aspects of our citizenship that we are so proud of don't seem to apply.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize that these bills are important bills to have, and fraud is something that shouldn't be committed, especially by, if the people are guests in our country, but they should be convictions. And this is a way to just put people out of the country and change the voting rolls in the future. That's what a lot of this is about. But what happened in Minneapolis, and I'm pleased that Ms. Jayapal brought it up, is something this committee needs to concentrate on. This was an unbelievably, clearly unjustified homicide that the administration immediately jumped on to defend the officer, but just not only defending the officer, but blaspheming the lady, Miss Good, whose name was appropriately chosen. She was a good lady. She did nothing wrong. And it's my understanding from reading the laws and being briefed on by some, that the ICE agents have authority only when they have a warrant for somebody's arrest or a reasonable cause, probable cause that somebody is in the country and illegally in the country because of immigration problems, but they have no law enforcement authority whatsoever unless they've been deputized by the governor, and they had no right to try to control traffic, because this did not involve an ICE operation that was being deterred in any way. When that officer came up to the car and reached in and grabbed inside and said, "Open up your car door, get out of your car," he had no right to do it. And people who are clothed in the appearance of law enforcement intimidate people when they have no right to do it. That was a violation of the law, and she had every right not to do it. And when she drove off, the man in front of her who shouldn't have been there, that was insane, he was responding to her wife who had said, "Dude, why don't you go get lunch?" He didn't like that, so he decided to shoot. He had his gun out almost before she started to drive forward, and it was clear she was turning to the right. This was an unjustified homicide in our country that we've all seen. And the administration jumps in and says, we're gonna attack this woman and call her a domestic terrorist. She's a victim who is not with us anymore. She's dead because an officer of the United States of America killed her, and it's been on video, and we've all seen it, and we've seen our president, our vice president, and Cruella Gnome go after her as if she was some type of domestic terrorist. They've attacked her before her body's in the ground. This is cruel. It's the wrong picture of our government and not the way our government should be. It should, any law enforcement community that I know of, certainly the Memphis Police Department, if an officer does a shooting, even if it's pretty clear that it's self-defense, they are relieved of duty pending an investigation. This man has not been relieved of anything. He was sent to the hospital by the defense counsels that they have their attorney saying,
the American people are not cannon fodder. We have the absolute First Amendment right to witness what ICE is doing publicly, to film what ICE is doing publicly, to photograph what ICE is doing publicly when he needs to resign. The American people are not cannon fodder. We have the absolute First Amendment right to witness what ICE is doing publicly, to film what ICE is doing publicly, to photograph what.
Say we're totally inspired by that. We need to make sure that any American action doesn't result in a rallying of the community against the United States and therefore stop the momentum that we're seeing on the streets of Tehran and around the country. So
the rule requires increased paperwork for families, reduces open and special enrollment periods, and allows insurers to push more health care costs on Americans by allowing plans to cover less care. And the truth, so let's go back. My Republican colleagues and the president won in 2024 because they're going to lower costs. Well, we can actually take action on lowering costs today. So let me be clear at the outset. What I'm going to talk about now is a CRA that the clerk just reported. It is not directly related. It is not the tax credit issue that has been a subject of an enormous amount of other debate and frankly, action in the House. But
in these cases, at bottom is the story of an American who was harmed by our government, by this administration.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
So there.